Now, a High Court has ruled that the South African Revenue Service cannot automatically withhold tax refunds while conducting an audit on VAT vendors. The court found that SARS cannot hold refunds for periods not under audit, something that the Revenue Service has been guilty of, we're told, in the past. Now, the Office of the Tax Ombud says the ruling highlights the fine line between SARS' powers and its obligation to ensure tax compliance and upholding the rights of taxpayers. Let's get you the latest on the story now. We're joined by Gert Van Heerden. He's Senior Manager for Legal Services at the Office of the Tax Ombud, and he joins us now via our video link in Pretoria. Gert, good morning to you once again. And I guess the big question, going from your newsletter this week, is establishing whether there is a general tendency by SARS to withhold tax refunds for taxpayers. Can we say that one way or the other yet?
Yeah, that's actually something that we looked into a couple of years ago because there were a lot of complaints about delays in payment of refunds. And we did find that there were a bunch of issues that SARS had to implement our recommendations on, and they did. And it has become better. Refunds have gone out much sooner than what they used to. But the problem that we're facing is this is now the second case where a very large value is involved, where SARS would withhold refunds for one period that's not under verification or audit because they're looking at another period. And only once a taxpayer complains does SARS then extend the scope of that audit to include those periods, which is really them trying to justify them not complying with the law. So it is something that we're really interested in. And something that we are looking into further.
I mean, that's a worrying statement there. You say it's only once a taxpayer complains, and that raises questions around, if I don't know my rights as a taxpayer, as all of us should, what happens then?
Very much so. And the problem is that the two instances that we know now are very large corporates. Obviously, I can't mention the names, but they're very large corporates, and the one involved refunds in excess of 50 million, with interest and everything came to around 70 million. And the second one, the one that this High Court order was about, involved refunds of more than $1 billion. So the question is, like you rightly say, if it's a normal taxpayer, what happens? If it's a small company and that is dependent on that cash flow, SARS can withhold these refunds, and in trying to justify it afterward by extending the scope of the audit, they can really push this company into the ground.
Sure.
And the TAA does make provision for interest to be paid on these delayed refunds, but the problem is by the time that these refunds are eventually paid out a year or two later, that company could have gone into ground. They could have lost employees because they don't have the cash flow. And that interest that is paid afterwards does not help that situation.
I mean, I know you said it's something that you investigated some years ago, but it sounds like such an incredibly serious issue that SARS and indeed taxpayers, businesses themselves are facing. Do we have any idea of how widespread it could be?
Not at the moment, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm saying that we're very interested in seeing, in looking into it. The problem with our office, the biggest problem that we face is that we can't automatically just go and investigate, and we are very dependent on complaints to come in. So we are looking for more taxpayers with this specific circumstances to come forward so that we can get that information and see if it is widespread. So currently we know about 2 cases that have very similar circumstances in terms of SARS practices in what they're doing. And I just want to pause to just note, we do understand that SARS needs to be able to have these powers. They need to be able to withhold refunds because there are a lot of fraudulent VAT vendors, especially out there, who are trying to milk the fiscus for money. So SARS do need these powers, but the problem is that they still need to act within the law, even when they are investigating these cases. So we're very much looking for more people to come forward, more taxpayers to come forward, if they do have these circumstances, so that we can have a basis to look into it.
I mean, the other worrying issue, just on the part of SARS, you talk about these 2 very big corporates, refunds ranging from 1.6 billion rand. The other case you mentioned, a refund of 70 million rand. And the issue there is if, as you say, the refund is delayed, those companies are, they should be getting interest on that delayed payment. I mean, that surely puts SARS in a difficult position as well.
It does, and not only SARS. The problem is that interest payment comes from taxpayers' pockets.
Exactly.
So where SARS takes 2 years or 3 years to finalize these refunds, in the first case that I mentioned, I did do a write-up in November in our newsletter as well on that one. SARS only managed to raise assessments to the value of, I think it was just over 1 million, 1.7 million rands. But they had to pay out interest in excess of 6 million. So that 6 million rands that could have been used for many other things, that was used for SARS to investigate and not find anything wrong or anything substantial wrong with the taxpayers' refunds.
I mean, in your experience, Gert, is this an issue of the people who are responsible here not knowing the law? Because this is illegal. I mean, withholding a tax refund while you're investigating a different period is in effect illegal. Is it a case of members of our tax authority not knowing the law well enough?
I do not believe that for 1 second, especially because of the fact that we raised this very specific issue in our report that came out in 2017. So this is one of the things that we raised. And SARS, at that stage, SARS' system was built in such a way that the moment you file a new return, all your refunds that haven't been paid out were automatically blocked up to the point when SARS could verify it. And they ceased that practice. So SARS is very much aware and agrees that this practice is not above board and it does not comply with the law. So I can't tell you now, before we do an investigation, if it is somebody that is really intentionally doing this or if it is just negligence or what the reason for that is. But hopefully we will be in the very near future be able to give those answers.
You know, one of the biggest issues that you raised in this interview is the fact that this issue can cripple a small company that would depend on that kind of cash flow. What is your advice to small business owners in respect to how they deal with the revenue service?
Well, first of all, SARS works on very specific time frames. And again, now this court ruling confirmed that SARS cannot have an indefinite period to do audits and verifications. And they cannot continue asking information after information after information and do more requests all the time. So you do need to keep SARS to a very specific time period. And SARS does have their own time periods. The biggest problem that people face and taxpayers face is that they would go to SARS and SARS would tell them, give us 21 days to look into your issue. And then they will do follow-ups and they will phone the contact center again. And every time they do that, SARS would again push them into this 21-day time period. And they get stuck in the cycle of continuous follow-ups and continuously escalating, but they never reach a point where they can actually reach our office to complain. So my advice is quite simple. Keep SARS to their time frames. If they say that if they give an undertaking that they've got 21 days to finalize a verification, you give them those 21 days. Then you complain to their complaints management office. You give them their 21 days, and then you come to our office for assistance. So it shouldn't take you more than 42 business days to be able to reach our office. But the moment that you start doing escalations and follow-ups, then you are essentially wasting your own time.
Gert Van Heerden, that's really valuable information there this morning for small business owners. Thanks so much for coming on to the AM Report. He's Senior Manager for Legal Services in the Office of the Tax Ombud.